Okay, now for a quick Devar Torah, at least that. Um, this parsha has the most mitzvot of any parsha in the Torah. And it really, though, is a continuation of last week's parsha. Last week's parsha, Shoftim, concerns itself of how the leadership of the Jewish people should behave. The Kohen Gadol, the judges, the king, etc., how they're supposed to behave. This week's parsha covers how the people are supposed to behave. So you have special mitzvot like returning a lost object or helping to find, if you find a lost object, you're supposed to go and help return it to its rightful owner. That you can't just say, oh, gee, you lost something, too bad for you. You help your fellow Jew to find his lost object, whatever it is. That you have to take a proactive stand in these matters, because what the Torah is getting at is something very important. You have to have good leadership, but you also have to have a good society. Something I've mentioned before, that John Adams, when he was president in 1798, wrote a letter to the Massachusetts militia. And he said in the letter, our Constitution is made for a religious population. It will not work with any other kind. Meaning that you have rights. The United States, the big thing is rights. But underlying those rights are your obligations to society. The Torah, by the way, is obligations, and underlying those obligations are your rights as well. So in other words, it's looking at the same coin from different angles, same thing from different angles. That when you have rights, you also have obligations. An interesting fact in American history, when de Tocqueville came to America, he wrote a book called Democracy in America in the 1830s. And he noticed something very interesting. Americans did not wait for the government to do something. If something had to get done, they did it. They would have all sorts of groups in their local societies that their purpose was to take care of this or that. You don't wait for the national government to do it. You don't wait for the local noble to come down and say, okay, I'll do it for you. You don't wait for the local archbishop. It has to get done. And that's the bottom line. And that's what the Torah is saying. Something has to get done. Don't wait for the leaders to take care of it. You see something that you think needs correcting, you correct it. You do your best. You do it as a part of the community, which is also an important point, is that you have to be a part of the community. You have an obligation that, we have our synagogues, but the synagogues only function well if we have members who are willing to step up and do something. Like today, we almost had a minyan because nine of us showed up. If another person had shown up, we would have had a minyan. But the fact is, the most important part of this is you showed up. And this is also what the Torah is getting at with this week's parsha. You have to show up. You have to be willing to be part of the community. Now, being part of the community will then give you certain rights as a Jew. But without the obligation, you're not going to have the rights. So this is something that I think we should always bear in mind when reading this week's parsha, about the lost objects, about that when you build a house, you have to put a fence around the roof so that somebody up there will not fall over the roof. You have to put a fence around a hole that you're digging so that someone doesn't fall into the hole. You have to think ahead. You have to think, what is this all about? And we'll get more into this later on in the week, but this is the basis of the parsha. Something to think about.